Greetings, I'm Squared here. Today we're going to solve quadratic equations, and this time instead of having the exact answers, we're going to write them as approximations. So we're going to round to the nearest tenths. Now it's important that you still know the rules. It's important that you've still memorized that. So we're going to sing the song, make sure you memorize the quadratic formula. So we're going to use the same steps today. We're going to make sure it's in standard form. That way we can find our accurate A, B, and C. We're going to plug our A, B, and C back into the quadratic formula. We're going to find the discriminant. We're going to simplify what we can in the discriminant, figure out how many roots we have, and then we're going to use our calculator to find our answers if we need it. Sometimes you don't need a calculator because it's perfect square and it's easy, but if we do, we're going to use our calculator. So let's get started. Here we go. Is it in standard form? Yeah, that one's in standard form. So we already know that our A is 6, our B is -4, and our C is 11. So we're ready to move that over and sing our song. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, I just plugged the A, B, and C into the formula for those variables. Now I've got to simplify a little bit. What's 4 times 6 times 11? Well, 4 times 6 times 11 is definitely going to be bigger than 16. So I already know that even though I'm doing this and finding my discriminant, so it's going to be 16 minus 264. 16 minus 264 is -248. So what is our discriminant? Our discriminant is -248. What happens, what kind of roots and solutions do I have if it's negative? Well, I don't have any, right? A discriminant that's negative gives me 0 real roots. So some people continue to solve and try to put in calculator. Watch what happens when I put the square root of -248 in my calculator. It says you have a domain error. It's because it doesn't exist, right? That's what it's trying to tell you. You can't do that. So some people continue on and they ignore that and they change it to a positive and then they get the answer that way. No, the answer, that's why we find our discriminant and think about it, because there is no solution to this problem. Because when we have a discriminant that's negative, there are no real roots. So if someone's asking for you to solve that quadratic equation, you would say there's no solution. I can't solve it because there's no solution. And there's no need to go further than a negative discriminant. Some people find the discriminant first and then they plug it into this later. If you found it first, you don't have to plug it in here. You'd already know there's no solution. Okay, a couple more. So it's in standard form. My A is 4, my B is -6, and my C is 0. If C is not there, it is 0. Remember, that's how that works. So let's plug it into our formula. X equals -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So what's our discriminant? Well, 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 0 is 0. So I have 36 minus 0. So our discriminant is 36. That's a perfect square, and that tells us we have 2 rational roots. It means we won't have to simplify it using our calculator, which is really nice. So this is what we have, right? So we have 6 plus 6 over 8 and 6 minus 6 over 8. Well, 6 plus 6 is 12, and 12 eighths. 4 goes into there 3 times, and 4 goes into there 2 times. So you could either have said 3/2 or 1.5. Either one is acceptable, whichever one you like best. 6 minus 6 is 0. Divided by 8 is still 0. So our answers are 1.5 or 0. Or you could have said 0 or 3/2. Either one. Okay, let's try one more. And then you're off to the races. Here we go. It's not in standard form, so we need to get it in standard form by subtracting 7 from both sides. And when we do that, our new equation becomes 3x squared plus 8x minus 27. So then we've got to find our A, B, and C. Our A is 3, our B is 8, and our C is -27. Let's sing our song. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Then we'll simplify it. So we're going to find our discriminant first. I don't know what 4 times 3 is 12. So 12 times 27 is 324. So this part's 324. Remember, we have two negatives. A negative 4 times a negative 27 would have canceled out to be a positive. So then we're going to add 64 to that. So our discriminant is 388. That's what our big D is, our discriminant. So I'm just going to write the rest of this here. So we're going to need a calculator for this. There's no need when you're asked to round to the nearest tenths. There's just no need to simplify and get the perfect squares out because you just plug it in as your calculator. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Negative 8 plus the square root of 388. Now I'm going to just do the numerator first. Then I'm going to divide it by 6. Whoops, sorry. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to divide it by 6. You have to, okay, good. The reason I said, oops, I didn't want to do that. If I had put a division sign there, it would have only divided the square root by 388. I mean, the square root of 388 by 6, not negative 8 plus the square root of 388. I need the whole thing to be divided by 6. That's a really common mistake. That's why I pressed equals. There's a way to do it with parentheses where you could do it all at once, but I don't want to confuse you too much. So make sure that you say negative 8 plus the square root of 388 equals, then divide by 6. So that's 1.94. I'm rounding to my nearest tenths, so that would be 1.9. And remember, it's approximate. I'm rounding, so I'm not going to say equals. Now I'm going to do the negative. I'm going to do the negative 8 minus the square root of 388. I'm going to press equals, get a negative 27. Then I'm going to divide it by 6, and I get negative 4.6. or negative 4.6. And those are my two approximate answers. Now you've learned all the 5 ways of solving the quadratic equations. Next time we'll review all 5 of those ways. So good luck with using the quadratic formula and singing the song. M squared, signing out.